what,
Applesauce.
yeah, applesauce, what we give our 1-year-old.
Wait,
Yeah.
why? Look what I
Why are you hating?
Look.
Why are you hating?
What's that? Oh, huh?
My favorite. Baby melts. They're like before I start
Those
doing
are so bomb. Have
You know what? I would probably like those because,
They're
yeah,
so
I've
good.
never had them.
3 bags.
What do you have? What are you holding?
This is my trail mix.
Okay. No, it's so funny to see what you guys eat. So, and do you guys, I mean, as a group, do you guys ever go out to pizza or anything, or is it? No. Yeah, so the food trucks are where Eden Coffee is. Okay. Okay, let's get back to work. So now I'm going to kind of run through. I'm trying to help you guys think through if you're ever seriously dating, or what I kind of asked some questions. Well, now I'm going to come back. And the first thing I'm going to talk about, this is all, when I was asked how many sessions do you do for premarital, I would do a session on your in-laws. So you marry the family. You've got to understand the family of origin. A lot of us don't understand our own family of origin, let alone the other person's family of origin. Now again, just if there's a crazy, everybody has a crazy Aunt Mary, everybody has a crazy Uncle Bob, okay? So don't worry about it if you're dating somebody and like they have a crazy Aunt Mary, because everybody has a crazy Aunt Mary. You just hope that you're not the crazy Aunt Mary coming into the family, or the crazy Uncle Bob. So I'm going to show you a video. Homered has these things for people who are in pre-marriage stuff, and we have like a teaching, but beforehand we have people doing this. So here's another video. Kind of goofy.
Four chairs, so I'm gonna put us on stools in the middle. You think that's okay?
Can you hear it?
Get along with each
This is it. Can't hear it?
It's not such a good idea.
Look, it's gonna be fine. I wanna meet your parents, you wanna meet mine. Kill 2 birds.
Oh, something will be killed. Don't worry. Can you pass me the salad?
You can't hear this, right? Yeah, get super quiet. Because you guys heard the last one. That's what's weird. So sound, I have it totally at the top. Huh? Okay, so let's try it with you guys just being super quiet, see if you can hear it. This one's kind of funny. What I do with my glasses too. So this couple is engaged, and they're talking about having the in-laws over. Okay, so we're going to do it again. Ready? Super quiet.
We have 4 chairs, so I'm gonna put us on stools in the middle. You think that's okay?
Yeah, just put people wherever, it doesn't matter.
Are you kidding me? My parents hardly get along with each other. Maybe having everyone over at the same time was not such a good idea.
Look, it's gonna be fine. I wanna meet your parents, you wanna meet mine. Kill 2 birds.
Oh, something will be killed. Don't worry. Can you pass me the salad bowls?
Hey, I'm nervous too. So, I tell you what, why don't we just list all of the terrible things about our families that we think are gonna shock the other person and make us fall out of love with each other, so we can just get it out of the way and enjoy dinner, okay?
All right, you first.
Okay. My stepmother will check you for birthing hips.
All right. My mom is a total klepto. She will take your candles and your silverware if you don't watch her like a hawk.
Wow, okay. My dad is a raging alcoholic.
No, you told me he was a music minister at a church.
No, that's my stepdad. I come from a long line of alcoholics. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my 2 brothers. I mean,
So just kind of crazy, but oh. So anyway, that story is not. I mean, I hear crazy things in a counseling center where I'll hear people tell each other things like as crazy as that, or worse, the first time they're in there, and I go, so what? Tell me what your family, the in-laws are like. Wait, your dad was arrested for sexual abuse? They don't know. So that doesn't mean that you don't marry them. You just want to get to know the family of origin. So what I think is a good thing to do, this is a cool thing for you to kind of think about. And you'll do this hopefully in pre-marriage counseling once you get married, or once you're going to get married. But this is called a family map. And actually, the first year here, I actually did a family map with everybody, and it was really cool. But then I realized it was harder because people weren't with somebody else. So I like to do two family maps. So if I'm with somebody, for very beginning, we put together a family map. So if you take this family, and so this family started with the grandparents. Okay, there they are. So think about your own family of origin. So sometimes you'll have one grandma from one family and one grandma from the other. Some of you have more grandparents. How many of you have more than just two grandmas? Okay, a lot of you. How many of you have more than two grandpas? Okay, same kind of thing. It's funny, a lot of the same hands. So you have to look at kind of everybody, what their background is, but a lot of times you want to make sure that you go through what the blood relative is. The reason I say that is because, let's say, for example, that a grandpa was severely depressed. There's a greater chance that you will be severely depressed. If you're with someone, if their grandma was severely depressed or there was suicide, then those kinds of things run through the family. I don't want to freak you out because nobody has, like I say, everybody has a crazy Uncle Bob and a crazy Aunt Mary. But so you start with that, and you start looking at things like, I've got a list here. Alcoholism, marriages, divorces, death early, serious medical issues, and you're going, this sounds so unromantic. Yeah, I know, but it's still a good thing. Meaningful spiritual experiences. Because a lot of times you'll go, yeah, my grandpa was the one who got us started in the faith because he was a raging alcoholic. He became a Christian, and now he's like hardcore Christian, and he kind of got us going in that way. Cool. Okay, but you want to get to know the family system. And what I find is couples, this brings intimacy to a couple. Intimacy means connection. So you're now connected because you now know what your other family is like. Some people are embarrassed of their families or their family of origin or whatever that deal is, but it's really better to know. So you start with that. Then you go to, uncles, aunts, father, mother, of course, that's the biggies. And then you, and then your fiance, and then brother, sister-in-law, cousin, niece, anything. It doesn't matter how you mark it out. But when you mark out your family and when you mark out their family, it actually really helps you understand that you're kind of marrying that family, if you would, okay? So that's a biggie. The next one is on communication and conflict. Remember I said that? We talked about conflict. I said I'm going to teach you a dance, okay? One is called the positive conflict dance. One is called the negative conflict dance. Do you want to meet some other people on this? This is, we'll do it again. I like this one.
Yeah, he's taking me out to dinner and then to the ballet. Oh, that's him. I gotta go. Okay, bye. Come in.
I got General Chase.
that itch?
Yeah.
I wanted a back rub.
Oh, you mean
Just a back rub. All right. I guess I could be a little bit more direct sometimes. I just like when you pick up on things and I don't have to spell them out for you. It is kind of sweet that you remember what we did on our first date.
So, is there anything else we need to talk about?
No, that's it.
Nothing at all?
No, there isn't.
Good.
Eugene!
Oh, come on!
So there's a phrase there. Oh, whoa, whoa. Why are you clapping for Doug Fields? I love Doug Fields. We've talked. Doug Fields and I have talked every day that we've been here. This is a cool story. Doug Fields is the guru of youth ministry. He was in 9th grade when I led him to the Lord in my youth group. And so it's one of the coolest things for me to see a person who, like Doug, who now is known around the world, doing stuff. And he was just a punky little 9th grader in my youth group. So anyway, pretty cool. So catch this. When it comes to conflict, listen to this. 86% of marriages that derail, divorce, don't do well, they derail because of poor communication. So when that woman was kind of hinting, he made a great comment. He said, hinting is not a form of communication. Okay? And a lot of times we just don't say what we need. I tell in marriage conferences, I'll say, women, your husband kind of wants to please you. I mean, he wants to try, but he honestly doesn't know what to do. So you're going to have to tell him what to do. And because I'll have a woman come in and go, but he's not spontaneous, he's not romantic and all this. And I said, have you ever told him that? What to do? No, because that wouldn't be spontaneous or romantic. How's it working for you? See? It's like Kathy. We were, a couple of years ago, we love going to movies. So we were going to a movie, and she goes, hey, by the way, you always hold my hand at movies. And I'm like, yeah. I'm thinking I'm getting a compliment. And she goes, what I want you to do is put your arm around me. And I went, after all these years, you're now telling me that I've been doing it wrong because I would hold her hand. And I thought that was cool, right? She wanted me to put her arm around me. So I go at the movie. I mean, I'm going to do what she wants. So I go to the movie. I put my arm around her. I don't know if you women understand this, but if a guy puts his arm around you for like 30 minutes, your arm, the guy's arm, goes dead. So like my arm, I'm at the movie, and I've watched the movie for half an hour, and my arm, at 20 minutes it was hurting. At 25 minutes it was horrible. At 30, I quit putting my arm around her, and I kind of go like this to kind of like loosen it up, and I grab her hand, and she just takes my hand, and she puts it back. So now I've kind of figured how to do that, and so I always put my arm around her at movies. I didn't do it for all of our marriage, but she hadn't told me that that's what she wants, see? So now she gets what she wants, and, should I have just read her mind? No, I honestly didn't know that's what she needed. So we have to learn how to do communication. Now, this is going to work for you for anything you do. I'm talking about trying to teach people who are going to get married how to do conflict, because, by the way, conflict is not all bad. But I want to talk about conflict and kind of show you something, and this is worth you looking at, whether you're in conflict with, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or with your parents, or with somebody here, or whatever it might be. So we're going to look at what we call the negative conflict dance. Okay, so you can think about this in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. For me, it's a marriage relationship, or with my kids. But basically, it starts with tension. Friction, problems, pain, and misunderstanding. Like I said, it's normal, and everybody has friction in relationship. You're going to have friction with these people. You're going to be here for long enough that you're going to probably have some friction with every person that you kind of get close to here. Okay, that's normal. That's how it is. It moves from tension to what we call defensiveness. So that's where we start going downhill. So what happens is we're in a conflict, and now we get defensive. And when we get defensive, we start blaming the other person. We have anger. We try to control. We attack. We use I language, like, I can't believe you're doing this to me. Sometimes it's not up there, but we use you language, you. So we go defensive. And again, one of the things I always say is, do you want to be right, or do you want to improve the relationship? Sometimes you can't be both. So even if you're trying to be defensive, what you're trying to do here is, you're stopping the good communication. This is the negative way to do it. From there, we move to disconnect. Remember I said yesterday, we were talking about this, I'm really good at disconnecting. So I crawl into the cave. I'm avoidant when it comes to conflict. So Kathy and I have common language talking about what we're doing, and sometimes she'll go, I feel like you're crawling in your cave. Could you come back out of your cave? Because sometimes I just get quiet. It looks almost like I'm pouting because I don't want to take a deep breath and try to duke it out. So emotional withdrawal, avoidance, pouting, there it is, or acting or feeling superior. If you're ever in a conflict where you're with somebody and they're acting like they have it all together, they're like, you're an idiot, okay? So all of that causes you to disconnect with them, okay? And then we move to being detached. And so a lot of marriages, and by the way, some of your parents are like this. God bless your parents, because I right now have a crush on your parents because of how cool you guys are. But some parents, they are bitter, there's resentment, there's contempt, there's loneliness, there's unresolved issues, they fight, and there's deadness. Now again, they're going to have conflict, but because they were doing the conflict dance wrong, it moves to all that stuff. You don't want that, but you have to learn. Communication is a learned trait. Learning how to do conflict good is a learned trait, because if you're detached, then you have deeper tension and regret. Now you're in a relationship. I mean, the pastor married you, you think it's beautiful, everything is cool, and then you start seeing some bad habits. These are some of our bad habits, some of the worst habits, okay? So again, I'm going to show you the positive conflict dance, okay? So here's the positive conflict dance. This is what you want, okay? So you start with tension, same thing, friction, problems, pain. But instead of going to be defensive, now you're going to say we. And what we means is I'm going to assume responsibility, Kathy's going to assume responsibility, and we're going to work together to resolve the issue instead of just fighting about it, see? And so what you want to do is be a we. I was in a conversation with this couple, and their 17-year-old daughter had been caught sleeping with her boyfriend in their bedroom during school. Not a good thing. So the mom came back from work. The dad was a fireman, and so he was gone, and the mom went ballistic. And then they find out that she's smoking pot and she's, sleeping around. Not like with loads of guys, but with this guy. So they're in my room in my office to try to figure this out. And they are sitting on the couch, and they are just going at each other, and they're blaming each other. So I was not there for marriage counseling. I was there to try to resolve the issue with their daughter. And so finally, I had a water bottle, and I just put the water bottle on my coffee table. They're sitting on a couch. And I said, first of all, you guys need marriage counseling. I'm not giving you marriage counseling today. We're going to talk about your daughter. I said, let's focus on her. And I wish I could say that this happens every time, but I said to them, let's focus on her, and they kind of like snapped. And they didn't go back at each other. They started focusing on their daughter. They actually came up with some really good resolution to how to help her. And they walked out holding hands. Now, I'm not saying that their marriage still didn't need counseling. I'm just saying that what they did was they did conflict right. They'd been bickering and they were getting defensive. You work too much and you're being negative to her all the time, and so she's running from you. Those are probably all both true things, but it wasn't going to help their daughter at that moment. So they got together, they focused on that. They said, you know what? I do work too much. I need to have a regular, Jim and I'd already talked about having a regular date with your 17-year-old to the dad, where you go out to breakfast or, just spend some time. And hang time, really, and that's where some of the good stuff. And with the mom, I said, well, you know what? She's not going to respond to you if you're always being negative. And, we talked through that. They said they assumed their issues, and, they work together. So now, once you've become a we, you still have a conflict, but you're connected. And actually, you can resolve an issue without a win or a loss. That's really key. So if you're in a conflict with somebody, you don't have to win the battle. So you don't have to, it's not a win or loss. It's back to the idea of, do I want to be right, or do I want to, get along with my boyfriend or girlfriend or my spouse or whatever it is. So then you learn new things about each other. You're connected, and once you're connected, you actually have authentic oneness, and you have much more of a feeling of being loved. So the conflict was the same. It's how you approach the conflict. See what I'm saying? Does anybody want to unpack that for a minute? Anybody have any questions, or do I need to unpack it a little bit more? Do you get it? Okay, you got it? Okay. So anyway, that is critical. Yeah.
Sorry. What if, I mean, maybe you gave an example and I was typing, but what if, the conflict or like the issue is like entirely one person's fault?
Very seldom is it. So at that point, but no. So sometimes, sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 90-10, but it's almost rarely. I mean, every so often it is, but it's almost rarely that one person's fault. Where it becomes the one person's fault is typically where there's a conflict about adultery or, addictions or things like that. And that's a whole different kind of way of handling it. But whenever you can kind of say, look, I'm not saying it's all your fault. I'm just saying I need to take some responsibility, and I don't think I've been there for you. You'll find something to assume some responsibility on your own part. You'll get farther. Yeah.
How do you go about like telling your spouse or like, significant other that like, well, like think about it, like what if I was like one who like always assumed responsibility and he just knew it was entirely
Yeah.
fault, but there was 10% like you said, and I assumed that 10%, but then every single time it was the opposite.
Yeah.
And then they were the 10%, they like just knew like me. How do you kind of go about like telling them, hey, can you like take more responsibility?
No, I think you do. And if they won't do it, then I think that's where you bring in a moderator. Because people behave better when there's a moderator. So it's, somebody at your church, or you go to a counselor or something, because honestly, I mean, lots of times I've kind of went, I think it's more his fault, but he's kind of like going, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. She's going, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And he's kind of like going, yeah, well, good, because you're a wackadoo. So there's times when I need to go, well, what's your part in this? And most of the time, I'm always amazed. They'll kind of go, well, I can be a little hard on her, or I can be grumpy, or, I'm not taking my share of the workload at home or whatever. They'll say that to me, but they won't say it to them. So that's why if you're ever at a block, put somebody else in the conversation. Anything else? Hands? Okay. So anyway, that's a great lesson to kind of learn. And a lot of times with people, and it could be two students who are having a fight, I kind of put those in front of them and say, let's do it this way. What can you learn? And a lot of times people will do it. The next one is finances. So finances are a big deal. Okay, I was talking to one of you who is in a relationship, and some finances in the relationship on the other side are kind of in the way in conversation, and that makes sense. So I just tell people, you'll do better in marriage. All this is research. You'll do better in marriage if you make a budget, you stick with it. If you deal with your debt, you guys aren't at that place yet, but if a lot of people come into marriage with major college debt, and so they're bringing in $70,000 of debt or whatever it might be, and deal with your debt. Make sure that everybody knows and are on the same page on the debt thing. I just tell people, delay the gratification and get on the same page. Delaying gratification. Like I have a friend who he and his wife bought $3,000 mountain bikes, very cool bikes, and they loved to mountain bike, or they did. And they would always use somebody else's mountain bike. So they spent $6,000, they put it on a credit card, which is really dumb because the interest is so high. And then they used it 3 times in the year. So the credit card debt of almost $6,000 moved up to over $6,000 because there's payments on it, and they should have delayed the gratification. They should have rented mountain bikes or used the same mountain bikes. And then I always suggest to people, and I find, and maybe this is an oversimplification, but give and save. If people give away 10% and if people save 10%, they probably have their life in order on all kinds of levels. So let's say, it's not like you're making the big bucks here, but Kathy and I really early on started doing this, and so I tell people, live on 80%. And if you can't afford a fancy house at 80%, then go live in an apartment. Kathy and I, when we were at Princeton, it was really good times for us. We lived in the littlest studio apartment. It was great. And we look back at that as going, how cool is that? Now we live in a house that's worth a couple $1 million. And we have an amazing pool. It has a little waterfall. We have all these kind of things. That doesn't mean diddly to us. I mean, we're glad we can have people over, and we have the Burns family party there and all that kind of stuff. But to be honest, when we had, for Christmas is what I was thinking, when we have, but we've always done the 80, so we've saved, all of our marriage, we've saved 10%. You know what? I'm not saying that I'm the richest person in the world by any means, but we have a really good, you know, nut there with money because of, I mean, and when I was the area director for Young Life for New Jersey when I was at Princeton. I made $250 a month, okay, and we gave, you know, I made $250 a month, and we gave money to the church. It was a whopping, you know, $25, and we saved $25, and that's what got started. And compound interest does that. So again, if you do that, people who do that and don't get themselves in major debt, who don't buy stuff on debt. So I'm big on not doing that. I mean, we have debt on our well, we don't have debt on our house anymore because we bought it 39 years ago. But you know, we had to buy a house, so we bought a house, and so we made those kind of payments. But we don't do stuff like that. So we have I mean, Kathy drives a great car, an Audi, but we paid cash for it. It was a lot of money. But and I drive a Mini Cooper, so it's not like, you know, that's not as expensive. But the point being is we don't have debt. So that helps our relationship like crazy, because if you think about, even for some of you, not all of you, but for some of your parents, that's one of the major issues, one of the major fights. 26% of people say that the biggest issue they have in communication is money. And one of the things that helped us is it's not. And neither one of us are all that materialistic. But, you know, that's what you do. Okay, I'm not making us perfect, but you just do it. You give 10%, you save 10%. If you guys started saving 10% right now, you'd be millionaires, because it just compounds the interest. Yeah. Yeah, I think most even non-Christians do. Because what happens is that when you have your separate bank accounts, and it's funny because one of my daughters, they don't do it, and they're always fussing with each other. Well, you need to pay for that, whatever, because they have partly separate. They have 3 bank accounts: his, hers, and theirs. And they're trying to put more into it, but it was just, I don't know why they do that. But I recommend putting it together, because then that's one more thing you're working together on. I call that connecting and intimacy. So when marriages aren't good, what happens a lot of times is the guy has a bank account and he's using it for, you know, other stuff, which isn't cool. And finally she finds out, well, geez, that's a breakup right there. Yeah, it's a good question. Okay, you're going to counsel, you're going to have babies, be the mom, and then you're going to counsel on the side. I've just given you God's will for your life. Yeah. But money's a big deal, okay? And like, I have a book called Doing Life with Your Adult Children that your parents read. And one of the things I say is, don't let money get in the way of your relationship with your adult children. So sometimes parents let that. They're all bugged because they're adult children. They gave them some money and then they didn't spend it the way they wanted to or whatever. But we make money is a wedge, or it's beautiful. But money is a wedge. The people who give 10 and save 10, kind of simple. They do better. Okay? Okay. So money. Now the next one I'm not going to spend time on because I did already, but I want to bring it up at least. Oh, you know what? Do you want to hear the finance one? The little thing. Okay, this is kind of fun. This is actually fun. I hate that music.
Okay, I've looked at both of our past spending patterns and added everything together into one monthly budget. I'd make a few adjustments, but I think it's working. And it even includes the honeymoon in Hawaii.
Nice. I think I see something that needs to change.
Okay.
There's no way I'm getting a $15 haircut. You can play putt-putt.
I'm not taking clients to play putt-putt. And I get $15 haircuts all the time.
Yeah, I know. And it's not just a haircut. Do you want me
That's actually her name too, Maima. What punks? So again, then you'd also want to deal with sexuality. A lot of times people are not willing to talk about sex, and in pre-marriage you talk about sex, okay? And again, I am not one who, if somebody's sleeping together or they're going too far, in my humble opinion, I'm not. To me, that's a yellow flag if they're doing that. I worry about it. I bring it up. I talk about it with them. But so many people are bringing baggage to a relationship. But like I know one couple. I mean, I thought this was pretty incredible. They were actually, having moments, their sexual moments. They got into my deal and they go, well, what do you think about it? And I said, well, even for people not who are they weren't cohabitating. People who have sex before marriage. This is again quoting my Ray Short expert guy. They have a greater chance of not making it in marriage. And so the woman, not the man, and I really respect her, the woman said, we're done until we get married. And the guy, what is he going to say? She goes, and if you love me, you're going to go with my plan. And you know what? They remained pure until. They had already been having sexual relations, but when she said, we're not going to do that. If we're going to live together for the rest of our lives, let her 3 months. And you know what? I really respected that. And they did. Okay, they were all excited. She said, I feel like I'm a new person, for the wedding night or whatever. Cool, good for them, see? So again, and basically what I would do is I would just talk to you, I would talk to them about the things I've already talked to you about. You want to see the sex temptation one? Okay.
Did you know that sex is one of the leading causes of
These guys are married.
marital discord?
I really don't think that's gonna be our problem.
Maybe
Sorry if this feels too hot to you, but these guys are married. The other two.
You're probably right. Look, I really appreciate that you care enough about a relationship to wait.
me too.
You really don't make it easy. Okay, I'm gonna go home and take a cold shower now. I'm really impressed by your powers of self-control, and a little offended by them too.
My friend had an idea that I put $1 in a jar every time I wanted to have sex with you, and we could use it for the honeymoon.
Oh yeah, I like that idea. You've been doing it?
I mean, not really. I thought about it.
I think you owe your jar another $1.
I don't have a jar.
Hey, do you mind if I borrow a jacket?
Wait, no, don't put that.
I will, see you in Maui.
She said, I'll see you in Maui. My line. Okay. Doug! You guys are like. What's that? Oh, that's stuff that I talked about yesterday. So when I talked about a theology of healthy sexuality, that's why I didn't talk on it. So those are great. Again, what I'm talking about then literally is the same stuff I talked to you about there. The other one is spirituality. And I think this is really important, and then we'll close. Whoa, there you go. So when you marry somebody, it's much better to be spiritually compatible with that person. And just because you're, like Kathy and I were very spiritually compatible. We both felt we were going into youth ministry. She was working Young Life in college. I wanted to be a youth pastor. We had a lot of things in common. we still weren't as spiritually compatible as we wanted to be. So it's one of the keys, I think, to a healthy marriage. It's the least developed area of intimacy. When you develop spiritual intimacy in a relationship, so prayer. I want to share this with, this is amazing. So this is a study out of Columbia University, and it was done a long time ago. But, so anybody know what the divorce rate is in America? Roughly 50%. It's a little better than 50%, but last year there was 2.1 million marriages in America, 950,000 divorces. Now, when you add second marriages and all that, it's a little confusing, but yeah, it's one out of two. If a couple prays together, this is not a Christian study, by the way. If a couple prays together, there is a 1 out of 1,012% chance of getting a divorce. My friend who actually taught me that, he's just passed on. His name's Dr. David Stoop, a marriage expert, and he goes, I would be out of work as a marriage counselor if people would pray together. Kathy and I, from that day on, when we heard that, we started praying together every day. So we pray together every day. We're not on our knees, we're not praying rolling around, we're not praying for hours, but we pray together every day. And I actually think that seals it. Even if we were frustrated with each other, we both had bad days or whatever, we just pray, we come together, we hold hands, and we pray. And we pray for like 30 seconds sometimes, okay? But sometimes longer. But that prayer thing is key. Worship together is also key. So a lot of people say, well, I married somebody, but they don't want to go to worship. Then I'll take you, Allison. But let me finish the worship thing because it kind of goes with the prayer thing. If you go to worship with your spouse twice a month, Shanti Feldhahn, who's one of my great research friends in Atlanta, but Shanti Feldhahn says that the divorce rate goes down by 35%. Worshiping together. Allison? One out of two if you don't pray together. If you pray together every day, it's 1 out of 1,012. No. Your chance of getting divorced went from 1 out of 2 to 1 out of 1,012. Isn't that amazing? So then worship, what we're looking at is I'm kind of giving you the science of marriage, but worship actually really helps. And again, people who aren't Christian buy that because they look at people who are Christians and worship together actually get less divorces. And that's just scientific fact. It has nothing to do with people going, well, are they Pentecostals or are they Baptist or did they come to Anchor House or did they not? No, none of that happens. It's if they pray together. Now, interestingly enough, and this will throw some of you, but the study at Columbia not only included Christians, but included others. So why? So if you're a Mormon or if you're a Buddhist, if you prayed together. For one thing, most religions don't pray together, so they don't have that. But if they did, it tends to bring them together as well. So the element of prayer is not just a Christian thing. Now, I think with Christians, it's even more powerful because you have a relationship with Jesus. But the point being, prayer is what brings you together. Okay, isn't that interesting? That's a fascinating, thought here. Also, if they have accountability and support. So I'm a better husband and a better father, better Christ follower, I said this the other day, because of being in an accountable relationship, not just with Kathy, but with other people too. So the guys help me. And so that's when if you start looking at people who pray together, who go to worship together, who are in accountability relationships, they have replenishing relationships, they're doing a whole lot better. Okay? And then the last one is what I call the closer challenge. And I'll close with this. Couples who pray together and kind of then study things together. So Kathy and I weren't doing that. Kathy has her own stuff. I have my own stuff. And a number of years ago, we have mentors, Jim and Manya, and they both died now. And we would go to their house and eat dinner, or they'd take us out to dinner or whatever. We'd talk about how do you parent better and marriage better, because we really didn't have mentors. So one day, I say in the middle of it, we always had a list to talk to them about, and I said, hey, what do you guys do for spiritual closeness? And Jim says, we have a weekly meeting for 20 minutes a week. And I'm like, in my head, the bubble goes, wait, and he's a major Christian leader. And I'm going, that's what you do? And then I thought to myself, we don't. Kathy and I prayed together and we did different things. It wasn't like we were anti, but we really didn't have a focus. We're driving out of the driveway. Kathy says to me, hey, I want to do that 20-minute thing. And I went, okay, but again, I don't want to do another Bible study. I'm already doing Bible studies. You're already doing Bible studies. And she goes, well, what they said they did was because I'd ask them, they said, well, it didn't sound very sexy to me that you just, with your spouse, you read something inspirational, scripture, whatever, and then you pray, and then you're kind of done. You do 20 minutes. And she goes, well, so why don't we do that? And I said, okay, fine, but would you mind taking the lead? Okay, that's the kind of spiritual giant I am. And I said, why don't you just find, she has more inspirational literature type stuff that she could read, or, whatever, devotions, whatever. So she goes, okay. I said, when do you want to do it? She goes, on Sundays at 9 o'clock. So I'm like, okay, but that's kind of random. She goes, well, everything's kind of settled down, and why don't we just do it at 9? Okay. So that next Sunday, I'd totally forgotten about it. And I'm watching a Laker game. To know me is to know that I love the Lakers. So I'm watching a Laker game, and Kathy comes and sits by me. She takes the remote and goes, shh, and puts it on pause. And I go, hey, what's up? She goes, well, we're going to do our time. I go, oh, okay. And it's not like I'm against it. I'm like not being unspiritual, but I was like, seriously, I'm looking at the deal to see what the score was. And she kind of goes, and we did, she brought something and we read it and it was cool. And then we prayed and it was probably less than 20 minutes. And it was kind of like that guy where he kind of goes, is that it? Are we done? Can we go back to, can we watch the Robin Hood movie or whatever? And I went, are you done? She goes, yeah. So then the next week, same thing. So since that time, Kathy and I have spent 20 minutes, sometimes more, sometimes less, a week connecting, talking, having faith conversations. Why we call it Closer is because we were telling pastor types, we were teaching them to do this. Kathy pretty much only speaks when we're talking to pastors about their marriages. And by the way, the fourth sex need of a woman is spiritual intimacy. It's not even on the list for men, okay, in terms of sex needs. And so we were talking about it, and this guy comes up and he goes, you got to write a book on that. And I go, right. And he goes, no, honestly, you guys should write a book. He goes, call it Closer. And I go, well, we're not really very good at it. We've been doing it, but it's not like, you mean teaching people how to do that? He goes, no, have 52 sessions where they can do it. You just hand it to them. It's almost like a curriculum. So long story short, it's the only book we've ever written together. It's called Closer. And it immediately became the best-selling marriage devotional in the world for Christians. It's not the book. It's that the people started spending 20 minutes a week. So I think some of the anointing in my life, some of the anointing in my marriage, some of the anointing with my family and whatnot happens when we do Closer time. We'll do Closer this weekend. She's coming tomorrow. We're going to stay at a hotel. We're leaving for Maui on Sunday. But probably while we're here, because when the family gets here, it's going to get more crazy. So it's not on Sunday, but well, maybe it's Sunday morning. But we'll do our Closer time. The point I want to say to you is start that way. Okay? Start with that. When you get married, don't wait like we did for years, but actually make that a part of your routine. Make that a part of the rhythm of your week, and it will be better. So what I just did was to show you how to do marriage where it works. There are things to do, and a lot of it is that stuff right there. Okay? Now, again, do you do a date night? Yes. We could have talked about romance and these other things. Sure, of course. But sometimes the whole theme for me this time has been build that foundation. Okay? Are you good? Great. Time is, what's that? Oh, that's on remarriage. Do you want to know about remarriage? Okay. Actually, it's so key. I think in our material on getting ready for marriage that Doug, that you clap for, I'm going to tell Doug that too. As soon as you came on, you went, hey, Doug. On remarriage, this is, if you want to, when I'm talking to people who are going to be remarried, I say, what have you learned from your past? Because the reason you're not married is because you didn't do marriage right. No offense. So what have you learned? And if they don't have a pretty good thing, I need to help them figure that out. I'll take another session to just go, okay, let's talk about that. What was your marriage like and whatnot? Be very honest. They've got to be transparent with it. Okay? And if they just say that it was him or that it was her totally, then that worries me. Because even if they got out of the relationship because the man had adultery and he was a drug addict, okay, so what did you learn from that? What's your part of it? One was she married that guy. She should have never married that guy in the first place, right? So what'd you learn? Also, we talk about how do you successfully blend a family? How many of you live within a blended family thing? Okay, so within a blended family, just a couple of you, and that's not the norm by any means. It's like 50% live in blended families. So with a blended family, it's hard because the mom and the dad, from the two different moms and dads. So one is your mom and one is your stepdad, or what, I'm making this up. They fell in love, but then they really hope that all the siblings get together and everybody else feels good, and the siblings are as in love, their children are as in love with their, step parent as they are. That doesn't work. So you've got to really work at blending, and if you work at blending, you can blend. But they say it takes 6 to 7 years for a family to blend well. Okay, and then also, like, there's a remarriage readiness survey. The reason I have that is because if I was teaching that, I would hand them a readiness survey, and they would fill it out, and then they would talk about it, and they kind of tell if you're ready or not. So there, we just did remarriage. You needed the end. Okay, so when we come back in the afternoon, did I hear people are going to go surfing today? Good. So when we come back at the 4 o'clock gig, which will be my last gig with you, we'll talk about communication. And we'll really do it from kind of a cool way, the different types of communication. The only part we won't talk about in that communication one is on it has the conflict dance, because I love I made up the conflict dance for people who are going to get ready for marriage. But it's also just a great communication tool. So we won't have to do that, but we can get done with that in 40 or so, okay? If you want to do a little bit of Q&A, write some of the questions out for you, so if there's something that we want to talk about, because for me, as my time ends and Keith and Debbie sort of take over more, like they got you you have them all day tomorrow. As that goes, then you'll take the great stuff that they've been teaching you, but if there's something that you want to talk about with relationships, today's the day, so we can have more time if you want to do some Q&A. Do they do that? Do sometimes the speakers go, let's do a Q&A? Do they just do a Q&A for the whole session? Yeah, okay, an optional Q&A. I think I'll do partly communication, partly Q&A, and we'll do it at 4 for y'all, because you have other things to do as well. And plus you had 530. The girls who came to my seminar yesterday, who remembered nothing but the most off-the-wall thing I've ever said in my life. Now everybody else knows. But they get an extra because instead of 530, now they have 531 because they had to go to that. Okay? Anyway, leave. Bye. Have lunch. Why did you guys clap so hard for Doug Fields, by the way? Do you even know who he is? It's so funny because he honestly is the youth ministry guru of the world. If you Google him, you'll go, what the heck? Yeah.